Yeah, I was about to say this is like the
Yeah.
all Viking podcast here with Eric Fredrickson and Will
Right.
Erickson.
We're all sons of someone, I guess.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Greens and Blues 14er podcast. This episode, Zach's first 14er goes down in flames. My greatest fear goes down in flames, and we talk with Colorado mountaineering legend Will Erickson. Zach, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well, Eric. It's midsummer. Hikes have occurred. I've hiked 10 peaks so far this summer, so
Yeah, you are rocking and rolling.
I'm feeling good. Burning the trail between Oklahoma and Colorado here.
We'll call it Zach Simpson's Highway. Is that what we're going to call that now?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a lot of other colorful names we could call. For those of you that want to know, I usually drive from Norman west to Elk City, and then I go north from Elk City into Wheeler, Texas, then Pampa, then Borger, then Stinnett, then Dumas, and then Dalhart, and then Clayton, New Mexico, and then Raton, and then from Raton into Trinidad, and then from Trinidad, the gateway to the Rockies is now open. I have hunted down every reputable eating establishment, all two of them in that entire North Texas area, that won't make me sick to my stomach when I hike the next day. So yeah, I've been hiking a lot. There's good news. We reported a couple episodes back in our hot takes episode about the rider, I guess, to the big beautiful bill that Senator Mike Lee had placed into the bill that would authorize the sale of public lands.
Mm-hmm.
That was first stripped out by a parliamentarian, and then it got reinserted in a different form, and then stripped out in the final bill by Lee or by some others telling him to pull it out. So that's great news.
It was.
It seems like a real coalition of a lot of Republicans and Democrats really align themselves. Hunters, hikers, outdoor enthusiasts, ATVers, everybody that sees these lands as a gift and a blessing and a heritage kind of lined up and called senators, Congress people, flamed Mike Lee out on Twitter, whatever it took, and it worked. So we need to remain vigilant, though. That kind of stuff is always in the offing.
Yep, there's a thread of that. So
it will come back. These are like zombies. As Woody Harrelson says, you got to do the double tap. But yeah, so that's really good news. Yeah, how about you, Eric? How are things in your world?
yeah, no, I agree. When I saw that portion of the omnibus bill came out, I was happy to see that. I think even as we were recording and releasing that hot takes episode, there was a lot of chatter on Facebook, on the .com about that. So I think it was top of mind for a lot of people. And yeah, I'm really glad that everyone was able to come together and get that taken out so that we don't have to worry about it for the time being. So yeah, that was good news. Yeah, I have not summited 10 peaks this summer. I've summited 2.
But you went on a backpacking trip, Eric. Tell me, how'd that go?
It was fun. It was really, really long. So we went to Lost Creek. I think day one was in the 22 to 23 mile range of hiking. Ooh. And at least a couple thousand feet of gain.
With a full pack.
With a full pack, yeah. Day 2 was 3 miles, and those 3 miles were excruciating because the blisters on my feet were in rough shape. But yeah, so eventually wrapped that up. That was kind of a good start to the summer, if you will. And then
your feet are broken in, man. You're good now.
Boy, they are now. That's for sure.
You can do no damage now.
No turning back. Yeah, it makes the 5 mile hike up Mount Buckskin and Loveland Mountain seem like child's play. But so yeah, a couple of 13ers. Looking forward to a lot more. Looking forward to meeting up with you in a few weeks here, and we can tackle something in some random location that we will determine. That'll be
We're
fun.
not being secretive. We just haven't decided yet. So like
We
it's
just
not
don't
like
know.
it's an undisclosed location. We really don't know where we're going to be headed.
It'll be
All
fun.
indications are perhaps Cataract Gulch in the San Juans, but we'll see how that all shapes out. Well, Eric, who is our guest today?
So our guest today, Zach, is Will Erickson, and I think I'd seen his a few of his trip reports on the .com here and there, but you had mentioned that you had gleaned a lot from some of his trip reports in the past, and you thought, yeah, he might be a nice guest to have on. So in that time, I started researching, and especially his winter trip reports are like they're like gold. Loved reading every time I saw something from him. Would see the snowshoe tracks, I'd see the thermometer picture, and I'm like, this is fantastic. So
This guy's a
completely
beast.
agreed. Yeah, like this guy is awesome. So yeah, it was your idea. I think you had reached out to him, and we agreed, hey, let's try and get this guy on. So how did that start for you, Zach? How did you get exposed to him and his reports and kind of his presence on the .com?
Well, it wasn't really the .com. It was the Facebook Colorado 14ers and Colorado 13ers pages,
Oh, okay.
or groups, I guess.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I just noticed in the summer there's a lot of people posting, summit photos and whatnot. It's fantastic. In the winter, it's slow, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I noticed there's this one guy, Will E, posting every week,
Yep.
like on a Monday or Sunday night or a Monday, snowshoe, cut a trench up Colony
Yep.
Baldy today, cut a trench up Stewart Peak in the logger, like just constantly. And I'm like, this guy is an animal.
Yeah.
And so I've just kind of kept my eye out for his post and noticed that he was pretty much hiking every weekend. And it turns out he probably was,
Yep.
as we'll discover in a minute in our chat with him. So I kind of kept my eye on him after that. I find it interesting to talk to people that, we are greens and blues kinds of hikers. Occasionally, I don't know what the next grade up is, maybe a
Pink.
black, pink. Yeah. Pink. In my gym, it would be an orange. Yeah, like I find it really interesting to talk to people that just hike a lot more than us
Hmm.
and tend to have a little bit more drive than you and I do.
Hmm.
It's fair to say. I really am intrigued by how they do their hiking, what they know, because they have a lot more to teach me than I do to teach them. Yeah, I just thought it'd be really fun to chat with Will, and it turns out we were right.
Yeah.
He was a lot of fun to talk to, and you guys will notice that normally we do interviews in 2 episode segments. In this case, Will had a work obligation that we were only able to get in about an hour with Will of a chat. So we'd love to have Will on at some other point as he continues his journey. I think he's into the 300s now in
Hmm.
terms of
Yep.
13ers and 14ers together hiked. As he gets further and further along, heck, in 2 years he might be in the 500s. So love to chat with him again at some point. But yeah, I really enjoyed our chat with him. You guys will see here he throws some very casual shade at Humboldt Peak and yeah, tells some other really cool stories. He seems like a really interesting guy that came to hiking kind of later in life
He
and
did.
really enjoyable chat.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I was having some audio technical issues, some lag, so I was not very present at all. And you drove the conversation with him and agreed. He was great to talk to. He had a lot of great stories, and so it was a lot of fun. And hopefully, we can get him on again in the near future.
Latency issues, I believe, is what it would be called.
Yeah,
But
good call. Look at you.
yeah,
Yeah.
look at me. I don't know what that word means, but I use it. So yeah, without further ado, here is our interview with already legendary hiker Will Erickson.
Well, we're here with Colorado mountaineering legend Will Erickson. Will, thank you for joining the Greens and Blues podcast.
Hey, happy to be here.
It's good to have you today, Will. So are you from Denver
So,
or where are you from
so
originally, Will?
I have traveled my whole life. When I was a kid, we traveled all over. I lived in 5 different states before the age of 18. We're a Walmart family. My dad worked for Walmart too, and he got transferred
Oh,
around a lot. So when I turned 16, I started working for Walmart. when I was 20, I became an assistant manager and I was transferred to a store in Missouri. I worked there for about 9 months. And then one day I got a random call that they called me up and asked me, "Hey, how would you like to go work in a store in Colorado?" At that time, that was 1998. I mean, we had stores out in Colorado, but we were growing a lot, so they were kind of transferring experience out to places where we were building a lot of stores. So on my 21st birthday, I moved to Colorado and loved it so much I never left.
Wow. So was it love at first sight in terms of the mountains? Your hiking accomplishments are sundry. I follow I don't follow you on Facebook, but I see all that you're doing all the
Yeah,
time. And
I,
so
I
where does
started.
this passion start?
I started kind of late with the actual mountain thing. I mean, I've always been a hiker, and I started long distance running about 10 years ago. I've always been into the outdoors and hiking and stuff, but I didn't start doing the 14ers until 2018. So in 2017, Walmart sent me on assignment to Park City, Utah for the entire summer. So I was in Park City, Utah from June, July, and August. It was basically an all expense paid trip. I just had to work 5 days a week. But I needed something to do on the weekends. Went out and hiking a bunch of the peaks around Salt Lake City. It was mostly 10 and 11ers,
Hmm.
mostly stuff around Salt Lake City. I did do Kings Peak. That's the high point of Utah. I did that one weekend. I fell in love with mountains after that. I've always been sort of an amateur photographer. I don't sell anything. I'm not that great at it, but I've always enjoyed taking pictures and finding unique perspectives and vantage points. After I got finished in Salt Lake City, I just kind of decided, you know what, next summer, I'm just going to start climbing some 14ers. I mean, I knew what a 14er was. At that point, I had done Pikes Peak a few times in my 20s and 30s. I didn't do my second 14er until 2018.
So what peak was that, or how does this passion kind of get launched here?
Yeah, so the second peak was Quandary. I think it
As it
was.
is for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't know a lot about them. I don't think I discovered 14ers.com where, you get all your information. At that point, I was probably using All Trails, which I think is where a lot of people start because people are
Hmm.
familiar with it and, it's
Hmm.
pretty widely known. Coincidentally, it's a bad place to get information for 14ers because the trails are not very accurate and the descriptions are not great, and it's led to some people getting in over their heads, not having good information about them. But no, that first summer, I'll be honest, when I first started researching and looking at the lists, I wasn't sure I'd even get through the list. I saw pictures of Capitol and Pyramid, and I saw those, and
Hmm.
I'll be honest, it was a slow ramp up to get to the progression of being able to handle some of the climbing and some of the exposure. I had probably a good 20-25 peaks, easy ones, relatively easy ones, before I attempted my first class 3, and I was terrified of it. I was like, man, I don't know about, walking close to an edge and having to use your hands to keep from falling off the side of a mountain. It really was a slow ramp up to where I got comfortable with some of the more dangerous stuff.
So you're starting to hike 14ers. Did you start out with the intention of hiking them all, or
I did.
were you
I did.
really? Okay.
My goal was to get through them all in 2 years, but I never
Wow.
I never intended. I knew. I mean, I'm a single guy. I have no family, so I knew I could get out and knock out a couple of peaks every weekend during the summer. I never intended to go into the fall and winter. When we got to October and we got to the point where it started getting cold, and then you started dealing with a little bit of snow and more wind, I told myself I'm just going to keep going until the weather gets so nasty or the snow gets so bad that I just can't do it anymore, and then I'll pick it up again next summer. When we got into that winter season, I just kind of kept going. I was still doing, trying to get one or two every weekend. We got to November, and I think my first real snowy climb was La Plata in November of 2018. I went down to my basement and I dug out all my old ski apparel, and
Bibs.
I just sort of layered on everything I had. It was not really well suited for climbing 14ers in cold weather and in winter, but I just kind of made it and just kind of figured things out. I never really went through any formal training or anything. I just sort of trial and error and kind of just taught myself, figured out what worked in snow and what didn't, and learned some hard lessons and probably got lucky a few times.
So 3 questions now. So when did you finish the 14ers? Or have you
Uh,
finished them?
it took me 16 months. So I started June of 2018. I finished them September of 2019 on Capital.
Oh, wow. Okay. So,
Yeah,
uh,
saved capital for the last because I figured if I was going to die on a 14er, I was hoping maybe it would at least be on the way down. So on my headstone, I could still get
yeah,
14er finisher.
here lies Will, finisher. You know, it's like an Oregon Trail tombstone, right? That's a very Gen X
Right.
reference,
Exactly,
but
exactly. I no
um,
kidding. I was terrified of capital. I was terrified of it. That second year, I started carrying an inReach, and I have a couple of friends that when I'm out doing really crazy stuff, they're kind of watching me, and I'm checking in with them, and you know.
so you talked about being afraid of exposure.
Mhm.
What is it that allows you to start overcoming some of that fear, or is it just simply the fact that you just did it?
I think just doing it more and more, you just get comfortable with it. I don't know exactly. I remember that day on the Sawtooth being kind of terrified of it, but just 1 foot at a time. And I don't know, at some point, you just slowly get used to it because you've been doing it, and everybody's different. Some people never get over the exposure thing. And I mean, there's some people that would never be able to do the knife edge on Capitol or some of the other places where, a bad slip or a rock falling in the wrong place could, be pretty disastrous.
So, second question that came out of that, you kind of said that naturally you just started winter hiking.
Yeah.
That's probably the thing that I admire the most about you. You've been basically cutting track for half of the 14ers community for the past few years. Um,
I
like
really,
when do you
really do enjoy breaking trail.
yeah, you're really good at it, like apparently. Um, so you talked about this kind of slow progression of hiking 14ers in the summer and then well, now it's October and well, I guess it's November now and we'll just see what's in my basement. When does winter hiking or winter climbing, whatever we want to call it, winter ascents, when do those become more a part of who you are as a hiker?
I wanted to get out as often as I can, and I'll be honest, the feeling you get after getting up to the top of a big mountain in the winter is a little bit different than summer. It's like, I mean, it's not a 6 hour ordeal anymore. It's a 10, 12, 15 plus hour ordeal. The feeling of accomplishment getting to the top of a big winter peak is it's different than summer. I mean, it just is because it takes so much more work and so much more perseverance. The weather is usually way worse. It's almost always windy up there. I don't know, the sense of accomplishment and the views, getting to see what the mountains look like from the top of, Pyramid in the winter is a view that few people get to experience. And it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. I think they look a lot better in the winter, but like I say it's a lot more work, but far more rewarding too.
Is that your preference is winter
You
ascents
know,
now?
I like both. This time of year, I enjoy being able to get up and down them quickly. I live pretty close to Shavano, or Chavano, so I go up and down Chavano every couple of weeks in summertime. I like being able to run basically the whole way down. I wouldn't say I dislike doing it in summer. It's just it feels like a bigger deal in winter.
And you like the challenge of it, it
I
sounds
do.
like.
I do.
So do you have any fun winter hiking stories? Any tales of woe and or adventure?
Well, I mean, the first winter I did this, I started my first winter peak, official winter peak was Gray's. I didn't even know at the time that I didn't know when the official start of winter was, but it happened to be the first full day of winter, December 22nd. You know, that first winter I did like 9 peaks, mostly easy ones. I didn't same thing. I didn't want to do any of the class 3 or 4 peaks that first winter. The second winter I got a little bit more serious and I started getting into some things, the harder peaks. But again, I wasn't super experienced. I did some dumb things. I learned some hard lessons. One of the dumbest things I ever did, and I didn't know it was dumb until after the fact, going up Kit Carson in the winter. There's a couple of different ways that people go. Most people go from Spanish Creek, which is not really a well publicized route. And those first couple of years, I was still just looking at the routes that were on 14ers.com. So some of the routes that people use in winter aren't even listed as official routes. But on 14ers.com, there's basically 3 routes. You've got the standard route, you've got the North Ridge, and then you've got outward bound Couloir. The first time I did Challenger was in April of 19, and I tried to get Kit Carson too, but April, it's full snow month. I went over to the Avenue, and I didn't even know where the Avenue was. I thought the Avenue was that short section right at the saddle of Challenger. I didn't realize the Avenue was actually around the corner. Again, didn't know what I was doing. I crossed that first section. I didn't have an ice axe. I didn't have crampons. I did have spikes. But I went across that, and I was like, this can't be the way up. What am I doing here? This is nuts. So I'd never done the standard route. I hadn't done the Avenue. Didn't even know where the Avenue was. Fast forward to when I went to do winter Kit Carson, I thought, well, it's winter, so I should go do a Couloir. Well, outward bound Couloir is north facing, and I think somebody said it peaks at like 50 degrees. The snow felt fine to me, but I'm not going to pretend I was an expert. But I went up outward bound Couloir, got to the summit of Kit Carson, got back down just fine. When I got back and posted a conditions report, I was accused of playing Russian roulette going up that couloir in February. I had no idea that a north-facing couloir was more dangerous than a south-facing couloir. Lessons like that is what I learned along the way, and like I say, probably got lucky, and maybe had the hand of God in a few of those instances, keeping me safe.
Yeah, it sounds like a little naive trial and error there.
It really was. I had no idea, and from that point on, I think that was probably the point where I started doing a little bit more research about some of these really tough winter routes.
You have any other fun winter stories?
Oh gosh, I was pretty lucky for the most part. Conditions were generally pretty good. The hardest of the hard winter 14ers are called the Dirty Dozen. It's mostly the peaks down in the San Juans and the Elks where there's a lot of avalanche risk, and you're pretty conditions dependent to be able to get some of those peaks. South Maroon, there's really only 2 ways to get South Maroon in winter. You can go up the Belcourt Couloir, which is northeast facing, and you need really good conditions for it, or you can go backside route to North Maroon and do the Bell's Traverse. But then you got to take a rope because you're having to go Bell's Traverse both directions. So South Maroon I did on the last day of winter in 22, and avalanche conditions were yellow. Told my couple of friends, hey, you guys are going to have to keep an eye on me. I expect I'm going to get to the couloir, and I'm probably going to turn back. It was the last day of winter. It was my last shot to get something that winter. So the Bell's in winter. You start down the road a ways. The road is plowed up to T. Lazy 7 Ranch. You've got to walk the last 6 miles to get up to Maroon Lake. But they take snowmobiles and cat machines up there for tourists, so it's packed down. So it's a pretty easy walk. You don't need snowshoes until you actually get to Maroon Lake. On most of these winter endeavors, the only winter camping I did was Chicago Basin. All the other ones, I've been blessed with pretty crazy endurance. And in winter, you don't move as fast, but as long as you can keep moving, you can get these as really long day hikes. I say day hikes, but there were 6 or 8 of them that I would start at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. I would just not sleep the day before, and I would just hike all night long because the hard part is just the long approach. And the first time I tried that was getting the Crestones, and it just kind of worked. I'm not gonna lie, I was tired, but it worked, and it puts you in the dangerous parts during daytime hours when you could see when you needed to see. Anyway, started up Maroon. I want to say I started probably 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Hiked all the way through the night. Got to the bottom of the Belcourt. I'm not an avalanche expert. I haven't done any of the classes. I just kind of go with my gut. If the snow feels stable, I go with it. So went up the couloir, which took forever. The snow, especially the top half, the Belcourt couloir is about 1,800 feet. It's a really long couloir.
That's long.
It's long. I swear it probably took me 5-6 hours to get up that couloir. The snow was like super powdery towards the top. Again, it didn't feel unstable. Nothing gave me pause. I wasn't getting any of the audible warnings that you sometimes hear when snow underneath you is cracking. but I also knew that, even on a green avalanche day, the scale starts at low. It doesn't start at zero. It starts at
Yeah.
low. They can happen anytime, but
Right.
was fortunate to get up to the summit of Maroon Peak. And the plan was to try to get across and get up North Maroon and then go down the other side. There's another couloir down the west side of North Maroon called Trigger Finger. Got part of the way across the Bell's Traverse. I made it up the first two towers without too much issue. They're difficult, but the nice thing about the dangerous parts of the Bell's Traverse, there's not a ton of exposure. Where you're climbing, if you fell on one of those three sections, I mean, it's not going to be a great time, but you're probably not going to fall to your death. There's some space where you might break a leg, you might break an ankle, but you're probably not going to fall 1,000 feet to your death. So I got to the third tower, which is the hardest one. I don't know what it's rated, probably 5.4, 5.6, something like that. Pulled out my 14ers app, which has the routes, and it has 2 suggested lines for getting up that third tower. And I had done the Bell's Traverse before in summertime conditions, but it was a couple years sooner, and things just look different in winter.
Mm-hmm.
I was at that third tower trying to figure out a way up, probably 90 minutes. I could get most of the way up, but at the very top of the tower, and I'm not big. I'm 5'7", short arms. I'm not 6'13" like a lot of the guys that get to do this stuff. I retreated, got to that third tower, and I wasn't going to get up that thing. My arms were tired. Towards the top of the bell cord, I was having to use my ice axe to kind of pull myself up in the not well consolidated snow. I had my snowshoe. I had everything with me. I didn't drop my snowshoes because I was planning on going down the other side. So I had to have all my gear with me. I had a 30-meter rope with me because my biggest fear was that if I got up the first 1 or 2 towers but couldn't get up the third, I would maybe need my rope to get back down those first 2 towers. Turns out it came true. I didn't end up using the rope. I was able to down climb those first 2 towers. If something happened on those first 2 towers, you'd have a little bit of run out to where you'd probably be okay. That led me to just down climb them and got through it okay. Went back down the couloir, got back to the trailhead. I saw my first people of the day. There was a couple that had snowmobiled up the road, and they offered me some water. They offered me a ride down.
Yes.
Which you can't do. There's official rules. There's like on 14ers.com. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a list of the rules for winter 14ering, and you can't get a ride from somebody from the trailhead. So I declined that and said, no, I'll be fine. It's going to be a long, slow walk, but I'll get back to the car on my own. That was my longest winter day. That was 22 and a half hours. Got back to the car like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and man, I was so sore. Most of my soreness was in the shoulders. I don't have a lot of upper body strength, so days like that where I've got to carry a massive pack for 20 hours straight, it's murder on my shoulders. So,
wow.
But I got one more peak than I expected to get, and I don't know, South Maroon is among the toughest to get because it's so conditions dependent, getting up that couloir, and it was surely risky. It's part of the reason I do most of this stuff on my own, is because I don't want to put anybody else in harm's way. So it worked out, but tough, hard day with probably a little bit of risk. Maybe I got a little lucky there.
Sounds fun, tiring, and sketchy all at once. So you've talked about 14ers, but I know you hike a lot of 13ers as well. When do those become a pursuit?
I like having a list to work on. So after I got the 14ers done, the natural progression for most people is, well, I guess I got to do the Centennials now. Started working on the Centennials. After that, it took me 2 years to get through the rest of the Centennials, which are the 53. So the Centennial list doesn't include all 58 14ers. It only includes the 53 ranked 14ers. So it's basically the 53 14ers and then the 47 next highest peaks, which is basically like everything from 13,008 up to, Mount Elbert. So started working on those, got through those. The next took me 2 years to wrap up those. Hardest thing about the Centennials is the list has changed a little bit. I originally did the old list because the LIDAR list hadn't, it didn't exist then, but the old list had 3 class 5 peaks where most people take ropes, Dallas, Tea Kettle, and Jagged. It's funny how the lower you get on the mountain scale, the harder they get. The Centennials are harder than the 14ers, and then the Bicentennials are harder than the Centennials. The lower you go, the harder they get. So I had to learn how to use a rope. I've never used ropes to go up mountains, but I knew that most people ascended Jagged, Tea Kettle, and Dallas free soloing. They're low 5th class, but most people rappelled down them. So I took a class with Denver Climbing Company. Just, hey, show me how to rappel. So spend a few hours. I'm a little bit scared of rappelling sometimes. Well, every time, because I do it so infrequently. I've only rappelled 5 times, 3 times for the Centennials and twice to get through the Bicentennials. I'm nervous that I've screwed something up with the rope.
There's a bit of faith involved there, right?
Exactly.
Like when you tie off and you're like, oh boy, I hope this works.
It's like this, my life is dependent on this rope and my ability to do the anchors and the rappel device and all that correctly. Once I'm actually off and rappelling, it's fine. Once I'm off the mountain and I'm on the rope, I know I'm safe, but I keep pictures in my phone of what the rappel setup needs to look like so that I can compare it just to make sure that, I've got everything done correctly to rappel down. So anyway, got through the Centennials 2 years later. After that, the next year, I was really just randomly working on 13ers. Basically, I would pick somewhere I wanted to go camp or somewhere I wanted to see, and I would just, all right, what 13ers are around? I didn't think I would be ready for the Bicentennials because basically I was terrified of Peak 15. I had read so many things about Peak 15 and the difficulties of getting up it and down it. I didn't think I was ready for it. So that first summer after, I was really just doing random 13ers, mostly easy stuff. Following summer, I was up in Chicago Basin, and I went out and did Monitor, Animus, and 13, which are kind of in the next basin over from Chicago Basin. And one of my all-time heroes, John Balsiar, goes by Scree Surfer on 14ers.com. Guy's my hero. He's done all the Bicentennials. He's a winter finisher also. He's just ridiculously fast, efficient. He's incredibly nice. I've hiked with him just once on Winter Capital. But anyway, got up to the top of Monitor, and his name was in the log, so I sent him a picture. Hey, John, I'm the same place you are. So I sent him a text, and he was like, oh, are you getting Peak 15 also?
And I wasn't thinking about it.
I was like, no, that's above my pay grade. So, no, it wasn't even in my thoughts, and certainly not that trip because I didn't have a rope with me. He sort of put the bug in my head that maybe I could do it. A couple of weeks after that, I was doing the Southern 13ers down by Culebra, and you always do those as a group because they only set those up a couple times a year, and you got to pay some more money to hike those 13ers at the ranch. Anyway, I met a guy down there that I started hiking with, and he had done Peak 15 also, and they both sort of convinced me that it's not as hard as it looks. A couple months after that, decided, well, I should go try and get Peak 15. And if I can get Peak 15, I know I can do the rest of them because, everybody considers 15 to be the hardest bicentennial. So a couple months later, I went out and got Peak 15. At that point, I think I was around 145 on the bicentennials. After I got Peak 15, which was at the end of summer, it was in September, I decided I'm going to try to get through the bicentennials in the next year. So I spent the winter working on the easier bicentennials closer to home. There's a bunch in the Saguache and in the Mosquito Range. They're not that far from home, and they're not like super long distance ones. Many of them out in the San Juans are like, if you day trip them, it's 30, 40-mile days. Worked on the easier ones in the winter and spring. And then when we got to summer, started planning out how I was going to get some of these super long distance ones that take a lot of time to get to.
Wow.
My goodness. I always am curious, having done all of the 14ers, so many 13ers, do you have a favorite of each of those, either summer or winter conditions?
South Maroon. I love South Maroon. People think I'm crazy, but I love South Maroon.
You are a little crazy.
It's beautiful. It's technical. It looks great from so many places. I love South Maroon. It's hard. It always feels like a big deal when you get to the top of South Maroon in any season. 13ers, only been up it once, but Vestal.
Did you do
Vestal,
Wham Ridge or did you do the non-technical route?
I went up Wham.
Oh, wow.
It's worth the trip to Vestal just to see Vestal. Even
That's
if
a
you're
cool
not,
peak.
it is so amazing. It's like the best thing about Vestal is the fact that it's so hard to get to that not a lot of people are there. You never see a ton of people there. If Vestal wasn't so darn hard to get to, it would just be littered with people because it's such a beautiful mountain. It's so unique. It's like when I was a teenager, I couldn't call myself a skateboarder. I could call myself a poser. I rode a skateboard, but I sucked at it. But Vestal, it looks like this perfect like quarter pipe.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's crazy that a mountain exists that looks like that. It's so unique, and really all the Grenadiers just look amazing. But Vestal, going up Wham Ridge was awesome. It's really nice being able to go up the steep part and then go down the backside, so you don't need to take ropes or anything. But yeah, Vestal is amazing.
Yeah, I always liken that to like a reference that we would all get. Those look like the kinds of mountains that Bob Ross painted. The Grenadiers, just that, just that smooth, clean surface.
Yeah.
You're talking about all this, Will, and first of all, you've got an exceptional risk tolerance, it seems, but also you sound like you're exceptionally fit. And how do you maintain that? Like, to be able to do this level of hiking with that level of speed, you got to stay in great shape. So what do you do to stay in shape and to keep in climbing condition?
Mostly climb mountains.
You just hike a lot?
I do. I've always been sort of addicted to cardio. I started running in my early 30s. I didn't start long distance running until like 39. I started doing some marathons. I'm sort of addicted to cardio. I love walking. My job is fairly physical. I'll get 10, 15,000 steps a day at work. I always want to be moving. I'm not great at sitting around or anything. My normal routine, I exercise 7 days a week. If I'm not running or hiking in the winter, I'm more on the elliptical. I love cardio. I wish I could force myself to do more weights because I don't have a lot of upper body strength. I sort of feel like I was blessed with an athletic body. I'm not young. I'm 48 years old. But I was blessed with a body that is able to do this stuff even at, I'm not super old, but I'm not in my 20s either. So I feel like if I don't go out and take advantage of it, I'm wasting a gift.
Yeah, you sound like you've been blessed with the right frame for this.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. I've never had surgery. I've never broken anything. Certainly, I've probably gotten lucky a few times in different places, but yeah, I've been pretty fortunate.
Wow.
One thing that Zach and I love doing, we have fun with it, is if we were to take our favorite mountain or favorite 14er or 13er, whatever the case may be, if we were to ascribe a song to it, if we were to describe it as a song, what song would that be? So, I want to ask you, I'm curious, do you have a song in mind for either South Maroon or Vestal Peak?
So I started listening to country music about 5 years ago.
That's unfortunate.
So I used to think the same thing. I was dating a girl that was into country music. So whenever we were in the car, I would drive and I'd let her be the DJ. I fell in love with country music. Dierks Bentley, my son sets in Colorado. I've seen Dierks twice at Red Rocks, and I get goosebumps when he sings that song because that's the story of my life. I love Colorado. If I got some sort of sentence to where I could never leave the state of Colorado the rest of my life, I'd be okay with that. I could find enough things to keep me occupied. There's just so many great things about Colorado and where we live. And you live in a special place when you live somewhere that people come for vacation. That's it. Dierks Bentley.
Well, to kind of ride on the coattails of Eric's song question there, you said earlier you love the challenge of hiking. You love pushing your wits up against a mountain and your body up against a mountain.
Yep.
It sounds too, though, like there's some deep love or passion for just being outdoors. I was wondering if you could just elaborate more on like what it is. This is very spiritual of me. What are you chasing out there? Like, what is it that keeps you coming back every time? Because not every experience is positive or wonderful. So what is it that keeps drawing you back in?
The views and the photography. I love taking pictures on a really nice beautiful day, I might take 500 pictures, especially if there's a lot of
Wow.
wildlife out. I love taking pictures. I love seeing things from different vantage points that, I'll never forget when I was going up that Belcourt couloir right around sunrise. I'm maybe halfway up the couloir, and I look over and I see Pyramid with the sun behind it. And the sun is literally coming right up over Pyramid. And it's like, man, I'll never get to see this again. And few people will get to see a view like this. Enjoy sharing pictures and telling stories, and mostly for the views and the pictures.
Which views do you like, the summit, or is it the small things, or is it all of it?
It's all of it. It's really neat getting to see. One of the best things about the 13ers is getting to see some of the bigger peaks from different vantage points. Mm-hmm. The Crestones look great from all three sides, but they look incredibly different also from, Adams versus
Marble Mountain.
Yeah, Marble Mountain. I was on Crestolita a couple weeks ago, and Crestolita is probably the closest peak to the Crestones. Mm-hmm. Seeing different vantage points, and I mean, it truly amplifies the majesty, how majestic these peaks are.
Yeah. Are there any religious or spiritual longings that are kind of embedded in your love of great views?
On a lot
you
of
can just
peaks,
punt on that question too,
on a
by
lot
the
of
way.
these peaks in winter, I pray a lot. I'm telling you, I mean, I always pray before and after a hike. When I get to a really sketchy section, going up, steep snow.
You're talking to two guys that I think oftentimes treat a summit view or even some of the smaller things as religious experiences. So I'm comfortable with that language.
Yeah.
Do you have, amidst all this, enough of the positive talk, do you have a least favorite experience as a hiker?
I have been pretty fortunate. Part of it is my risk tolerance. I've really not had a ton of times I had to turn back. There have been some. My first attempt on North Maroon in winter was the last day of winter, 2023. Super long hike. The route's about 30 miles. I started up on the last day of winter, the night before. I got to Gunsight Couloir, which is the couloir on the backside that is generally considered to be the safest way to get up North Maroon in winter, because it's not as steep as Trigger Finger on the other side, and it's not as steep as the Belcourt. Super cold. My Garmin, this has only happened a few times. Those Garmin inReaches, they're pretty tough, but if they get too cold, they flash a little warning on the screen saying, hey, device is reaching minimum operating temperature. If it continues to get cold, it will shut down. I got that a few times through the night. I carry a little thermometer with me. It was basically, between 0 and 5 all night long. The trenching was really hard that night. I got to tree line about sunrise. I got to that couloir, and that snow felt bad. That snow was like crunchy on top and soft underneath.
That's no bueno.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an avalanche expert, but I know when something feels like, this might slide if I go any further. So I went about 27 miles in and turned around.
Ooh.
Well, 13 and a half miles in. It was 27 miles round trip with no peak. But that's what you get sometimes. Probably another of my toughest experiences, that first winter. I went up Humboldt in February, and this was a big snow year in 19. Went up Humboldt, breaking trail all the way from the two-wheel drive lot. Nobody had been up there recently, and there was just a ton of snow. I get up to tree line, I'm maybe 500 vertical feet from the summit of Humboldt, and it's cold and windy, and I hate Humboldt. I think Humboldt is the worst 14er. The weather always sucks. It's always windy. It's kind of boring. The views aren't bad because you got the Crestones, but I was 500 feet from the top, and I started losing feeling in my fingers. And like I said, this was that first winter when I didn't have the best gear. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to turn around. I don't want to get frostbite. So I turn around and I start making my way back. And at that point, I was using GPX files to find my way and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I'm not an expert. I'm not the best route finder. I could not do some of this stuff, especially in winter, without being able to use GPS navigation to figure out where I got to go. I get back down. I find my snowshoes, fortunately, at tree line, but then my phone dies. And I carry a backup battery. I'm smart enough to do that. But my phone had this, it was like a little piece of debris or a wood chip, or it got something in the charge port. And I couldn't charge my dang phone to get my GPS back to life. So I start going down. I think I know the way, but it's so windy that all my tracks are gone. I end up going down a different ridge.
Oh,
Yeah, I go completely down. I knew I was heading in the correct direction. I just went like one ridge over. So I get all the way down. I knew I was lost, but I also knew that I knew I was going in the right direction. I thought I'd be able to perceive when I got to the rainbow trail because that rainbow trail goes all the way across, which fortunately I did. Got all the way down, saw the rainbow trail, and thought, all right, I know where I'm at now. I know how to get back to where I need to go. Got back to the car. Okay, it was like a 13-hour day with no summit to show. Yeah, that was probably one of my worst ones. Been pretty fortunate.
I am here for irrational mountain hatred. Like just so maybe a last question here, Will. You've done a ton of hiking. You've told some good stories here, and we'll have to try to get you on some other time to tell some more. But do you have any hiking wisdom that you want to pass on at this stage in you're 48? You've been hiking for about 8 years now. What's the kernel of truth about hiking that you'd like to pass on?
Never go up anything you're not willing to go down. Never go down anything you're not willing to go up. That's been one of my, mantras that, has generally kept me safe. I don't feel like I'm an expert. I've just sort of learned what works for me for a lot of the stuff I do. And, if you want to get into the winter stuff, really, it just takes you got to have a ridiculous level of cardio and endurance. If you want to get into the serious winter stuff, you got to have a pretty high risk tolerance too, because those 12 they call the 12 hardest winter 14ers are called the dirty dozen. There's risk on all of those, even on a green avalanche day, there's risk for all of those. So get out there and have a good time, but don't be afraid to turn back. We've all got different tolerance for risk and what we're willing to do and go across. The nice thing about the Colorado peaks is you can find an enjoyable peak to do regardless of your risk tolerance, especially if you open yourself up to the 13ers, because there's so darn many of them.
That's wonderful, Will. Really appreciate you coming on here and chatting with us. I had a ton more questions, and the more you talk, the more questions I was thinking of here. So we should have you on some other point, but appreciate you sharing these stories. Appreciate your social media presence, which is very positive, and you're just sharing just cool pictures a lot of the time. It's great to see.
Yeah, it's exciting. I say that photography is what got me into this. It's neat getting to see perspectives that few people get to see.
Yeah.
I would echo your sentiments, Zach. This has been awesome, Will. Thank you for sharing your stories, sharing your wisdom, making us all feel like, no matter what we do, it's not going to be enough because you're amazing. Thank you for sharing everything with us. This has been awesome.
I'm going to go do some wind sprints just to feel better about myself.
Oh, man.
Well, Zach, that was a lot of fun with Will Erickson. What are your thoughts?
A lot of fun. I didn't know we would end up talking about the maroon bells quite as much. Clearly those left a real impression on Will. And I loved hearing those stories, and I loved hearing Will's kind of journey as well to get to where he could do peaks like that. He's come to hiking kind of later in life, and he's taken it up with a plum. And to realize that he's hiked hundreds of peaks in 8 years, where it's taken me 46 years to get 168 peaks. Really impressive. I loved hearing about how he keeps in shape, which is hiking.
Yeah.
Stays in hiking shape by hiking. It hurt my soul a little bit to hear him say those things about Humboldt Peak, but, we can't have it all. How about you, Eric?
Made me chuckle a little bit when he mentioned his distaste for Humboldt. But one thing that he mentioned that was really encouraging, and I wasn't expecting, was he did mention a fear of exposure and a pretty significant fear of exposure, which is definitely my Achilles heel when it comes to hiking.
It's a lot of people's.
Yeah. And I love just hearing him say, you know what? Just, you got to do it. You got to kind of, pardon the pun, you have to expose yourself to exposure in order to kind of work through that fear. which it makes perfect sense. I mean, in theory, my head can think that all at once. My heart has to actually go through that fear when we're hiking up to think, oh wow, this is hard, but I can do it. I can
Yeah.
work through it. I can, get over that fear at least temporarily on this ridge or whatever it is. So really encouraging to hear someone that, like you said, has hiked hundreds and hundreds of peaks, some of them with a whole lot of exposure while he has a fear of exposure. So
Uh-huh.
that was really cool to hear and really encouraging. So yeah, I loved his stories about the Maroons and Vestal Peak, and yeah, really cool conversation.
Yeah, it's great to talk to people that have accomplished so much and are continuing to do so. He still has the drive, you know. I mean, cutting trench in the winter is hard.
Oh my
And
gosh.
and he's an just an absolute beast. He just takes to it. So
Yep.
really fun to talk to people like that. I think this is the best part of the podcast. Well, other than talking to you, of course, but
That's a fringe benefit.
yeah, that and the occasional crepe.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, a lot of fun talking to him, and
Yeah,
I wish Will all the best in his future efforts. And he needs to come back on and tell us some more stories at some point in the next couple of years. So
for sure. Well, Zach, if anyone of our listeners wants to share their stories or their thoughts on Will Erickson or anything else mountain related, how can they reach out to us?
the first and best way is at greensandbluespodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to do a Q&A episode sometime in the fall. And if
That would
you've
be
got
cool.
questions for us of any sort, please send them to us. Otherwise, I'm just going to make up questions. And I've already got a few actually that might be fun. This one is from Z Simpson Not. So yeah, if you guys want to send us questions for an episode, I think that'd be a ton of fun. You can also find us on Facebook, Greens and Blues Podcast, and you can find me various ways. I got an email or a DM, I guess, on Facebook this week from Troy Burke, who's a Colorado 13ers hiker. Shout out
Yeah,
to Troy.
that's cool.
So yeah, what other ways can people reach us, Eric?
They can find our YouTube channel, which is especially recently gotten a couple of shorts from your trips to Conejos Peak and
I
Marble
keep forgetting to
Mountain.
record stuff though, man. I'm dying. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at promotion.
Well, I don't know. It's my phone battery doesn't last very long either, and when it comes to like recording videos, and so I'll be up at the summit of something and record for like 5 minutes and just not think about it, and then my phone's dead. I'm like, oh, that's great. Good thinking, Eric. Nice job.
Well done.
Yeah. But YouTube channel, that might be it for
All
now.
right. Well,
Yeah.
we hope everyone continues to have a great summer of hiking. And we've got more interesting episodes coming up. I believe our next episode is going to be on Castle and Conundrum. So maybe we'll get it in time for some people to maybe do a late summer hike of
Oh,
a couple really cool Elk Range 14ers. Probably the easiest Elk
yeah.
Range 14ers. So yeah, we thank everybody for listening and continuing to write in. And we will catch you again next time.